Tim.
All right, we call Ways and Means back to order. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we come out of the executive session.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We're now back in session as the Ways and Means Committee. Couple things. First of all, we had a discussion on the 4 items that we talked about. There were no votes or motions made.
We need a clerk.
Oh, we need a clerk. We have no clerk. Oh.
Yeah, that's
Clerk for. Sorry about that. We'll repeat that. Thanks, Mr. Mitchell. When you're ready, let me know.
Chairman.
Ready?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
All right. I need to make a motion again.
Yeah, we're gonna start all over and call the Ways and Means back to order. We need a motion to come out of executive session. We got a motion, a second by Mr. Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are now back in our regular Ways and Means Committee. I would report that we had discussion on the 4 items that were presented before our meeting. There was no action taken, no votes taken on that. So coming out, I wanted to, before we start with the next item there, our mayor is kind of under the weather. Don't shake his hand unless you want something bad. He's here, and I'm not sure where he is, but he's kind of under the weather, but he came because this was important, and we appreciate him making the effort. But we got Mayor Pro Tem Seekings up here, who is going to be up here filling in for the mayor, but he will be here. So I'll let Mr. Seekings speak about when he's talking for the mayor or talking for Mr. Seekings. So with that, are there any motions before we go on to the approval of the minutes?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a motion on item 2A, which is the update on the Gilliard litigation that was discussed in executive session. I move to approve the finishing of the incomplete items at the Gilliard Auditorium with contractors to be determined by staff as needed and funded with retainage monies that are held by the city.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve that expenditure. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item 2A is approved. Okay, item number 3 is the approval of the November 13th minutes.
Move for approval.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item 3A is approved. Item 4 is bids and purchases. There's 3 items. We got a motion. Did I hear a second? Second. And a second on those 3 items. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bids and purchases are approved. Item 5A is the 2017 amended state accommodations tax budget. Recommendations of State Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee that met and approved both the attached budgets on 11/16. I thought we were going to get something on our desk, but I didn't see anything. Are these the ones that are just in the packets that we got? Okay, so there's no change to them then. Okay. All right, so
You going to present?
the first item.
Are we taking just A first and then B?
Yeah,
Mr.
let's
Chairman?
do A first. Well, let me get over here. I've got it on page 119 is my sheet. We're showing there This is 17. Let me be sure I got 17 and not, yeah. All right, here is 2017. The original amount was $6,004,363. There was an additional $167,500. That brings the amended 2017 budget to $6,171,863. And basically within your packets is the are the items that make up that change. So what's the pleasure of the council?
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those or any discussion?
That's on 17.
2017.
He did. That's correct.
So basically we approved the 2017 original budget. At the end of the year, we've had more money come in basically, and they're not reallocating, but they're allocating that increase and between different things. So yeah, the motion is to approve the amended one, and there's a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the 2017 amended is approved. All right, the next item is B. That item is the 2018 proposed state accommodations tax budget. Let me get over on that's 5B. So the total amount of revenue was, let's see, $7,015,000. Got to get these numbers bigger. $7,015,000, and then we've got proposed uses. There's $4,717,000 there at the top. 30% of it is required by law to go to the CVB. $1.4 million to the Gilliard Management. And then there's a list of items that come down to another $2 million, $2,165,000, which leaves a surplus of about 133, and then they made some adjustments to that and came over the surplus of 74,000. What's the pleasure of the council or committee?
On the 18th?
18.
2018, yes.
There's an addition, I think, a couple of additions that you'd like to amend the budget by. One that I'd like to call the attention to the council and ask approval is for closing the gap in healthcare. They put in a grant request. Ms. Wharton has it. The application came in late for one primary reason. They have been having this festival up in North Charleston for 9 years. The Gilliard had been booked. Southern Living Magazine had it booked for Labor Day weekend, and they dropped out, meaning the Gilliard was going to be dark. That festival is looking to grow, and they'd like to access the facilities of the Gilliard. But they also put in a request for a grant. It's got a 9-year history. It's got a study that was completed by the College of Charleston showing the economic impact of putting beds and heads, and I believe that was part of the package that was delivered to Ms. Wharton. The request is for $35,000, and I would certainly ask that our committee,
So you got a motion to add $35,000 to this state accommodations tax, which would reduce our surplus from 74.5 to whatever that, less that number you just put at 35, you said?
35,000.
35,000.
Mr. Chairman.
I think it'd be something to support.
So we got a motion to that effect to add the 35,000. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a second. All right, Mr. Seekey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to thank Councilmember Gregory for very ably and expertly taking over the Accommodations Tax Committee. It's a hard job, and not a whole lot of people want to do it, but he did a great job of it this year. There were a couple of things that we have typically done at that committee. One was fund a request from the Halsey, which came in a little bit late this year, which I think was set aside but needed a motion at this council. So I'd ask Councilmember Waring if he'd accept an amendment to his motion to add $17,500 to the Halsey and $15,000 to Seawee.
I will do that, Councilman Seekey.
Again, which was also set aside, discussed at the committee, but left to council, and I think that actually balances out the budget.
So we're talking about 35
for closing the gap in healthcare,
Close the gap, okay.
and you had two of them, didn't you?
You said
Halsey.
Halsey is how much?
17.5, and Seaweed is 15,000.
And I accept my motion on that.
Mr. Mayor?
So we got seaweed was how much?
15.
15,000, okay, so that's the total of 74.5?
Well,
All right, you amend your motion, Mr. Waring?
I do.
Okay, to include all those, who was the second on that?
Well, it was.
The second his amendment.
Yes.
So, Mr. Lewis, did you, your second, his amendment? Okay. All right, discussion, Mr. Gregory.
yeah, Mr. Chairman, there was another that came in late. And I think in all fairness to the Preservation Society, which was for 5,000, we need to try to figure out where we can get that so that we're consistent.
I would ask Councilmember Waring to add that to his motion too. I forgot about it.
Let's amend that motion to include
Thank
the
you.
Preservation
Second.
Society.
And it's 5,000.
Yes,
It is.
Where are we getting the 5,000 from?
got it.
Who are we subtracting it from?
We're okay.
No,
We're okay.
we're good.
Ms. Wharton says we okay.
That all adds up?
We're good.
You sure, Ms. Ward? All right, so that takes care of the 74.5. Any other discussion on, well, Mr. Lewis, did you
I second it.
approve his second? Or,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
okay. So we're straight on that. Ms. Wilson was,
Whenever we're ready.
oh, you ready to vote?
No, we're not ready to vote, but are you?
I'm getting ready to call for the question. You have any comments?
Yeah, I better go ahead and make my
Okay,
comments. First of all, I'm sorry that it's been an unusual afternoon. I need a recusal form. I need to recuse, I'll just say it publicly, on the symphony, obviously. And in keeping with many years of tradition, I'm going to vote against ATAX. Just because I see organizations here we fund year after year after year that do not put heads in beds. And what our committee is tasked with, and Mr. Seekings and Mr. Gregory have done a great job with this year after year with the constructs of the committee that they have. But what we fail to do as a council is we fail to look at this pot of money and give the allocations as to where they need to go via state statute, and then say, you know what as a city of tourism benefit do we need to take care of? We fail to capture a portion of this. It doesn't have to be all of it. I understand there's some great organizations here who do wonderful things for this city and do need to be funded. But we allow ourselves no room to fund things that we need to attend to. We can't get to a lot of tourism capital projects. We can't get things off the ground and get them started because we fail to take our cut of the pie. And instead, we're giving things, and I'm not going to name names. I could go through, I could tell you a few horror stories with some of these organizations that would make you say, oh my gosh, never again. I'm not going to do that. I see others that don't put heads in beds, do not adhere to the mission of tourism at all. But nevertheless, I have this conversation every year, and just by virtue of my employment, there are things that I can't say. Because I know this world so much, the arts and that sort of thing, I know it too well. I can't say a lot of things I'd like to say. Maybe I can next year. But at any rate, I'm going to vote against this because as a council, and our ATAX committee is not given more comprehensive tools that it can use to really engage in good activity for this city and to jumpstart things that will add tremendously to tourism over the years.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Any other comments? All those in favor of the amended budget, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Okay?
Nay. Okay. Got one nay. All right. We are now down to the hospitality fee budget. Item 6A. Again, it's the 2017 budget that we have collected more money than we anticipated, and we've got some money that we can allocate, and so we need a motion to approve this budget or approve any amendments, and I've got something that I'd like to say in terms of an adjustment, but anyway, is there a motion to approve?
In 2017?
Yes.
I'll make the motion so we can go and have discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Second it. I'll second.
And Mr. Waring, second. Okay, any discussion? All right, I'm going to start off, okay, go ahead, Mr. Gregory.
What do we have left in 17? Anything?
Mr. Chairman, how much is the surplus in 17?
I'm sorry?
What's the amount that's in surplus for 17?
Well, we started off with, the total revenue was $15,645,473, and then we had additional $700,000 come in
Right.
to make the total $16,360,000. And then there's several items there, and I'll go ahead and start with mine in case I'm going to take most of it. So
No. I'm going to start with Mr.
I
Chairman.
won't leave anything for the rest of you.
Yeah.
But basically what we had here is an increase of about $700,000.
Right.
There was another $200,000 at the gear yard that we'd budgeted them $1 million, and they only spent about $800,000. So because of some real good management over there by Mr. Bedard, we kind of saved a few bucks there. But what I would like to do, and most of this money, if you look down at the very bottom, was just added to the seawall and the low battery fund. Now this is hospitality tax. You got to think about that. This extra money we got in hospitality, and what I would like to do is to, instead of putting it all under that one item, would be to put $500,000, set it aside for the underground wiring in the West Ashley. This would be money to be used in beautifying the Highway 17, basically, by putting all those distribution lines. And it's going to take a while to do it, but this is where I would like to get $500,000 in that, and that would still leave another $250,000. But this hospitality, so we need to kind of back to what Ms. Wilson said a minute ago. We need to think about ourselves a little bit here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I can see us doing something with Stony Field, especially when we look at the bridge run and the potential of the bridge run ending in that area at some point. I know we have $1 million, but that's not enough to do it. I'd like to see the $250,000 go towards Stony Field so that we can start getting the architectural plans, drawing specs, and et cetera, together for that.
All right, well, who made the motion, Madam Clerk?
I made the motion.
Councilmember Mitchell, and seconded by Councilmember Ware.
Okay, so would you accept these two items? Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Ware?
Think I should? Yeah, but
Can I?
it's
And then we can discuss them more.
yeah. Let me make sure that the money that we are talking about, the hospitality money, can be used for what the purposes that you're talking about.
Well, we're not exactly sure yet. We're looking for some advisement from the state on that. So Mr. Moody, Councilmember Moody wanted to reserve it for now until we get clarification from the state.
Yeah, I have actually written a letter to request a problem is people don't want to give you, they want you to go ahead and spend it, and then they want to find if you did it right or wrong. And they don't want to give you an advance advisory. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that. But my preliminary was, yes, it'll
I'll accept the
qualify.
amendment then. I'll accept the amendment, and
Okay.
we'll still be checking to see if.
And you accept the second. So we've got this budget with two adjustments. We're adding $500,000 for the underground wire on Highway 17, and we're adding another $250,000 to the Stony Field to get that project going. Yes, Mr. Regal.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be clear, by statute, we have to spend this overage, is that correct? Because I don't want the people in the audience saying, well, the council's got $500,000 or $1 million, they're just throwing it around. So I want clarity, is that a requirement, Amy, of the statute that we spend the surplus?
It's not a requirement, no, but I mean, we
What's
would
that?
just go to
What?
fund balance if we didn't spend it. It would just go to fund balance if we didn't spend it.
Yeah, if we didn't earmark it.
Right.
That's a bad word, I know, but that's what we're doing,
Right.
we're earmarking it. What's that? Yeah, not Charleston, that's right, not Charleston.
Okay.
Oh, I
That was your question? Yes, Mr. Shade.
the audience to be clear on that.
Mr. Moody, while you made the request for the underground for $500,000 for just Highway 17, I would ask that you would that you would consider that the $500,000 be for underground for West Ashley and make the modifications depending on how that may apply or not apply for all of West Ashley, in addition to just Highway 17.
Let me respond to that specifically. And the reason I did it on 17 was because we're going to have TIF money.
Right, I understand.
That could do it, and that TIF money cannot be used outside of that TIF. And so I'm trying I mean, we're going to underground West Ashley, but we're going to do it with a TIF. And if we don't do it for 17, then we can't go into the TIF and get the money.
I know. So there may be other areas outside of Highway 17 that is not in the TIF jurisdiction. So I'm just trying to make it broad-based.
The other point is, for the hospitality money, it has to be used to hospitality,
right,
which one of the arguments is that 17 is the gateway into the city from the south, and that would be a beautification of that. So I'm trying to be sure that we can spend it legally on that. And we may need to do something else for Orleans Road, for example.
Right, and I understand those restrictions. That's why I just wanted to make it a little bit more broader, because the other argument is that Old Town Road is a gateway into town as well. So I understand the restrictions that we have on this money, and I just want to make it a little bit more broad as to because we may have money that does not all apply to the underground on Highway 17. And so if we get ourselves in a little bit of a box, I want that money to be available for other parts of West Ashley in addition to Highway 17 that fit that criteria that you just enumerated.
Well, all I would say is this is not enough money to do anything, to be honest with you. What we're talking about here is if you did all of 17 from the Ashley River Bridge down to Main Road, it'd probably be about $5 million. So that's what we're talking about. You know, I mean, you can spread it as thin as you want it, but that was why I was trying to get one project done at a time, or get this one started.
Which I'm not opposed to. I think that the 17 certainly needs to have that beautification part of it. So I was just trying to make it a little bit more loose in case we had, in the event, some areas may not qualify, and if it doesn't, I just want to be able to have it available to other parts of West Ashley.
We could put that in there. Mr. Waring, you had a comment.
I think, Mr. Chairman, you said, I think we touched on how much it costs per mile, per foot to put in underground wires. You said that the $500,000 is really a starting point.
Well, from the estimates that I got it's about $350 to $400 per lineal foot to do this. And so, you know, at some point, I would love to be able to bring back to this council a motion that we require the businesses and stuff that along 17, that when they redevelop, when they do something, that they have to put the wiring underground, and in order to encourage them to do that, that we have some funds, some matching funds to get that done. So, I mean, I would, you know, if they wanted to do Orleans Road, you know, I'd want them to do the same thing. So that's all I'm saying, is it's just a drop in the bucket to get started. So, all right, Mr. Wagner and then Mr. Seekings. You all right, Mr. Wagner? Mr. Seekings?
I think Councilmember Lewis actually had a...
Lewis, okay.
Well, I appreciate you talking about the underground wiring and the businesses. You know, years ago, the businesses on King Street from Market to Carolina helped put the wiring underground. The businesses paid a portion for those wires to be put underground. So I think that would be a good idea if we can approach the businesses and see if they are willing to help us do that. The other thing is, for years we've been talking about Stonyfield. Stonyfield has been underfunded and a deplorable place for Burke High School and other schools to play. So I'm certainly glad that Councilmember Gregory has thought about putting some more monies into the budget. So I hope that we will continue each year to fund till we get Stonyfield up to par. Because I think it's the only all-black school in the city, and most likely in Charleston County, and it's been underfunded for years. We've been trying to get the school district and other entities to work with us. It seems like we can't get it done. So I just want to applaud you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Seekings?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a hard and long sell to to get underground wiring along Savannah Highway under this particular heading of funding. That being said, underground wiring is essential not only to West Sassy, downtown, everywhere. It's a life safety issue. We need it everywhere. One of the things that has been on our books for 25 years is the seawall. And if there was ever a project that needs attention now and we need to accelerate it, it's that project. And to not put some of this money towards that project, I think, would be a massive error on our part. It's there. That project needs to go. We are sitting here with a report in our hands that say it's in failure mode. If it doesn't get fixed, we've made a huge mistake. Underground wiring in West Ashley is going to take, among other things, as Councilmember Lewis said, cooperation with the businesses. We got to have a plan. I don't think it's engineered. So I think long-term goal for underground wiring is great. To put a big hunk of $500,000 away right now, which is unlikely to get spent anytime in the near future, would not be a good use of our resources given the needs that we have currently with water and flooding. I think water and flooding need to come into every conversation we have, and for me, this money needs to, if not in whole, in part, be put towards a project that clearly fits within the hospitality tax definition and is a project that's ready to go. We're going to do it in 2018 and is something that we desperately need, both for the people who come visit here and for the people who live here. And if we don't use it for that, the people who come visit here aren't going to come anymore. So I would think we should rethink that allocation of the $750. If you want to start some money into an underground wiring fund, I think that's great. But to put $500,000 that has no hope of getting spent anytime in the near future for any public good with hospitality funds that we've already collected, I think would be a mistake. So I would like to see an amendment to this motion to see some of that money go towards a project that's going in 18, sorry.
Just as I address that question, because I somewhat anticipated it, part of our problem here is that we've got, when we get the 2017 budget, we're going to see another pot of money go into the seawall, and we get to the other budgets, we're going to see more of it go into the seawall. So this is money that was left over, that we had an extra, and it's about hospitality. The seawall is really about drainage. I mean, it's about flooding, rather, not drainage, but flooding. And I think this is a use of excess money. I mean, the seawall can't suck all of the money out of our budget. And it's been doing that. So,
if I could just respond very briefly, and then I'll leave it to Councilmember
Wait a minute, Mr. Williams. Let me let Mr. Seekings respond, and then I'll call on you.
I mean, the seawall is a reality we're going to have to deal with. That's fine. We're going to have to look at lots of pots of money to do it. It's going to take a long time. I just think parking $500,000 for a project that really is nascent at best, when we could be using it for an active project that is needed, and along a seawall where it's 0.8 of a mile. I think the population along that seawall is 600 people. 6 million people go along that seawall every year. So it's clearly something that is a life safety issue, a safety issue, quality of life issue, and it's what draws people here. Every single picture you see of Charleston in every tourist magazine has a picture of a big house on the Battery. If that Battery's gone, our tourism is gone, and we've got to protect it. We've got to take everything we can. And it doesn't mean that we don't have other important infrastructure projects. We do. But we have to prioritize, and there's been a lot of talk around these chambers, not just from me, but from all of us, that prioritization is something we need to get in line now. And as we go forward into 2017, 2018, flooding both sides of that river or something, you might recall, my line about flooding was it's not controversial, it's expensive. And I don't want to make it controversial. I want to make sure we allocate enough monies now so we don't find ourselves in a really bad spot somewhere down the road. So,
Mr. Williams?
Sorry.
Okay. Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. I'll toss something out there. I'm going to just throw a little gasoline on the fire, and it ought to be on Facebook in 90 seconds, I would say. Good? But at any rate, with all of this talk, and again now, Stony Field is finally coming to light, and that's great. Again, it's another downtown project. I just want you all, because so many of you have privately expressed interest to me, please don't forget that we've got to get to West Ashley, and we've got to start getting some sports facilities over there, namely that aquatic center. And of course, everyone's going to go ballistic and make a lot of water jokes, and I get it, haha, cute. Okay, but still, It's a major economic engine. It's a major tourism engine. Until we have some funding, we can't even begin to have conversations for public-private partnerships under which a lot of the funding would come together for that. So I'm just asking, that's why I made the remarks about the accommodations tax that I did. We don't help ourselves as a city very well. And until we start doing that and we get serious about bonding some of this money out and start to try and fulfill some of these projects, we're never going to make any progress. So that's all I'll say. Please don't forget that. 15
Thank you, Ms.
years
Wilson.
now. Wait a
Mr.
second.
Williams?
I just want to add.
I'm sorry.
All we could do was spend $2.6 million to put a glass house on a failing pool downtown. That's the best we could do.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah, we're looking at the water issue in the whole city about maybe $2 billion. But we're going to be looking throughout the years of many different things to do. I concur with Councilman Seekings. The seawall is critical to even going out to the state legislature and being able to put more taxes on the tourism. But we got to make sure that that seawall is consistent for the tourism to come. I think when you look at the big picture, we've got to start somewhere. And I'd like to amend a motion to see that we give the seawall the $500,000 because it's a shovel-ready project that's going to take a lot of money, but at least it's a start. Because if we're going to tax the tourism in the future and other taxes we have to have for the water issue, that is about $2 billion. It's $44 million for the Church Creek Basin. I mean, we've got to start someplace. I think it's a smart way to start because it's something we know we got to do. So I like to amend my motion to ask that $500,000 of that money go to the seawall.
All right, so we got an amendment to take the 500, put it back in the seawall. Is there a second to that?
Second.
We got a second. So any discussion on that? Mr. Wagner?
Right,
Well,
we had a motion on the floor.
Well, we had a motion and a second to spread it out, and now he is amending that motion, so we got to vote on that motion, and if that fails, then it comes back to the original motion.
Right.
Okay.
So we clear on it. Where's my lawyer? Is that right? Okay. All right. So we got a motion. To leave 500 and leave 250 at Stonyfield. Is that what the motion was?
Yes, sir.
All right. We got a motion to do that. Put 500 at seawall, 250 on Stonyfield. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nays have it. That motion failed. Now, back to the original motion of putting 500,000 in the underground wiring and 250 into the Stonyfield. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
We got 2 nays and the rest are ayes. That is approved. And so the 2017 hospitality budget, that's 6A, is approved. The next item is the 2018 hospitality budget, which shows $10,000 short of being $17 million. You see the items there.
So moved.
Okay, the total that's spending all of that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Waring.
I'd like to
We got
offer,
Mr. Seekings made the motion. Who seconded it? Mr. Mitchell. Okay, Mr. Waring.
there are a couple of amendments I'd like to make to this budget, in that $300,000 be spent for a completed building at, we call it now the Bender Street Park, which is over in the Ashleyville area. The city is proposing a shelter. We're trying to have a climate control building.
You put new budgets on your desks, which would include what we talked about.
But let me just reiterate for the record, the $300,000 is in the budget that's
There.
all right. And the $700,000 for WPL Park is in there?
Here's the amendment.
Those have not been passed out yet?
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry, I thought these all had been passed out.
well, those are not, Ms. Wharton, those items are not in this budget anyway. They're in our general budget, I believe. Is that correct?
No, this is the
The hospitality budget. I
Okay,
thought that's what
all
we're
right.
talking about.
I just wanted to know what she was handing out was what we needed. So this is a reallocation from what we've got in our package.
That's right, thank you.
Bring mine up here.
We need one too, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wharton. As I see it, there's 400,000 for Bender Street, if I'm following it correctly,
Right?
700 for the WPA.
and 700 for WPAL. Yeah, page 2.
Correct.
That's the budget we voting on. I'm ready for the question.
All right, let's go back and be sure we've done this right. You were just handed a 2018 same numbers except that shuffled around a little bit.
That's right.
$16,990,982. So who made the motion to approve?
I did.
You made it. Do you accept this sheet as?
I do accept it.
Okay, and who seconded? Second. Mr. Mitchell, you accept this? You second that? All right. For discussion, Mr. Seeky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do note that part of this budget includes $100,000 for West Ashley Bikeway resurfacing. I know Mr. Kronsberg is here somewhere in the back. Can you give us a quick update on where we are on the West Ashley Bikeway resurfacing and what this money represents as opposed to other portions of the...
This is the Bikeway, not the green one.
Right.
Right.
This is the Bikeway.
The Bikeway, there's no active capital project there now to resurface it, although part of the drainage project that just happened on the Bikeway did resurface a portion between Playground Road and St. Andrews Boulevard. So there's a portion that's already done, so we're almost there, just got about half more to go.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Seeky?
Sir, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Regal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to note 2 items of interest. Underground wiring, super site, almost 400 grand. You proposed 500,000 in the earlier amendments. Here, just as an example, the expense, the cost of this, we're spending almost 400 grand just along around the super storage site. So I want to note that. The other thing, and for the edification of my good friend, Councilman Seekins, seawall low battery, there's well over $2 million in budget for that. And so that's might at least start, but we need a lot more, so thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Shade.
Just want to make sure, follow up what Councilman Waring just brought up about the Bender Street property. That is going to be designated for a shelter?
A climate control building, not a shelter.
Yeah, climate control.
Climate control building.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of adopting this 2018 budget, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 17 is the 2018 Municipal Accommodations Fee Ordinance for Capital Projects.
7.
7, what did I say?
17.
7, okay, yes. You are correct, as usual. Okay, item number 7. This particular item, this is the $3,693,375. Is that right, Ms. Warren?
Yes. It's $7,350,000 in total. The ordinance is split it between general fund and capital projects.
Okay. Any comments or questions about the 2018 municipal accommodations fee? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Motion. Need a motion.
I move, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we got a motion. Was there a second to that?
Second.
Second?
You're welcome.
Okay. We're going to approve it then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 8 is the 2018 General Fund and Enterprise Fund Expenditure Budget Ordinance. And we're going to have a public hearing on this at our city council meeting. So is there a motion to approve those budgets?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments? Would that not be the one where we would remove the $40,000 from the 2018 legal fees?
I amend my motion to remove those fees, Mr. Chairman.
You were. Who seconded that motion? Mr. Mitchell, do you accept that amendment?
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
now discussion on the revised budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I just want for public record why that $40,000 fee should be
Okay. Any other comments? All those in, Mr. Williams?
I will be voting for everything else except the removal of the $40,000. I will not be voting for that.
You'll be voting against the budget.
It was agreed.
I guess we got to approve the amendment first, do we not? And then vote on the whole budget?
Yeah. Take the session.
We got to vote on the amendment first. So we got a motion and a second to remove $40,000 from, and I don't know right now whether it's in the legal department or in the chief executive. It's in the chief executive's budget. So we got a motion to remove $40,000 from the chief executive's budget for that line item. Is there any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Therefore, the motion carries. So now we're going to vote on the amended motion or the amended budget that has that item excluded. All right. So is there a motion to approve the
Second.
as amended? We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. On to number 9. That's the 2018 General Fund and Enterprise Fund revenue budget. Got a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any comments? Yes.
Can I back us up to the, we have to have a balanced budget, so when we come back on the 19th, we'll have to bring you another amendment so that it balances with you taking that out.
Yeah, okay. We'll either that or we'll add $40 to fund balance or something.
40, yeah.
Right.
40,000.
That will be balanced, correct.
40,000.
Did everybody understand what she was saying? Okay.
Right.
All right, so the 2018 item number 9, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Number 9 is approved. Number 10 is approval of the 2018 stormwater utility budget.
Move for approval.
Got a motion, is there a second? Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, I want to make some discussion. Everybody's got the 2018 stormwater draft budget. Just for your information, was it 4 or 5 people? Five. Okay. Included in this is 5 new positions for folks to help clean out our ditches, to improve that part. That's in this budget. But I'd like to go maybe another step forward. And what this budget also includes fees to complete the work order management system that we've been working on, that ought to make us more efficient, so you know when cleaning is needed and done and all that kind of stuff. So this budget includes that. So we got that work order management, and we got 4 more positions. The way the revenue comes, if you look at the budget, it's basically $6 million. This $6 million comes from a user fee, for want of a better term, that's charged to everybody in the city at the rate of $6 per house, in effect. $6 per month.
Per month.
Per house, yeah. So it's a total of $24. What that is based on is the average house is about 2,200 square feet. So when we have a business that comes on, for example, we go out, we look at that business, and if it's got 11,000 square feet, then that would be 5 times bigger than an average 2,200 square foot house. So their stormwater fee would be $6 per month times 5, or $30. So what it does is it picks up places like the Citadel, College of Charleston, all these people that don't pay any property taxes that contribute to and benefit from our stormwater fees. So everybody is in this boat together. And as Mr. Seeking said earlier, we need to spend some time and really get started on this stormwater and this drainage process. So here's what I'm going to propose. So other than those 4 positions, I'm going to propose that we increase this $6 to $8. $2. That will basically produce $2 million a year. And what we're going to do with that, first of all, we're going to, the last time we had a master drainage plan in the city was 1984. That was done by Davis and Floyd. Fortunately, they're still around. But Davis and Floyd did that plan. We've tweaked it a little bit, but we don't know what all of our problems are, and it's going to be expensive to start that. But I think before we do anything, there's about 5 things that we need to go out for a request for proposal to start or develop a new master drainage plan. Whoever we select to do that, this firm would also provide project management services. And after we've identified all of our challenges, we'd have a much better sense with this of what the cost is going to be on those projects, and maybe and also what their priority is, which ones we ought to start on, which one we get the most benefit from. So there'd be project management that would come into this thing. The other thing, which I think is critical, is that this engineering firm, or what do you want to call it, would be responsible for grants. We're not going to do the Battery, the Church Creek, all these other, the Old Town, you name it. We're going to not do this unless we go out and find some other money somewhere. And so part of this would be to help us apply for grants on these specific projects that they identify so we can get that going. And the other thing we need to do is we need to review all the rates of this stuff to see what the best way to fund our local effort is. I mean, right now, what I'm told is Columbia's same fee, our 6, Columbia, South Carolina is $13. Now, I don't know how that...
They increased it $13.
I don't know what they do. Maybe they don't, I don't know. But it's really hard to compare. But, I mean, you just say $13 and say, wow, and ours is only 6. So maybe they don't charge not-for-profits or something, so they have to have a higher number. I don't know what the deal is, but we need to look at our rates and see where they need to be. So I'm going to propose as part of this budget that we increase this fee from $6 to $8, and that we do these 5 things. We go and look, we immediately start doing RFQ to select a new firm that'll help us with the grants, help us with the project management. I mean, we've got to get a handle on this flooding in this city, and this is my effort to say, let's start.
Mr. Chairman, I'll put that in the form of a motion to increase the fees from $6 to $8.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Seeking?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is something we need to do for sure. Before we bind the money and send it in too many different directions, though, another thing that we're adding in our budget this year that we just voted on is a resiliency officer. I think anything that has to do with stormwater and any efforts that they're going to be going forward in terms of relief of water needs to include our resiliency officers. So to the extent we're looking for people to write grants for us on the private side, I want to make sure that's a coordinated effort with the resources that we're about to basically hire at the city internally, and looks like probably in the form of Mr. Wilbert. So let's just make sure there's a coordinated effort before we start hiring a bunch more consultants when we might be able to do a good bit of this work.
I would agree. I'm making the resources here. We need to get a hold of this thing. We need to get started today. So any other comments? Yeah, Mr. White?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So is it the contemplation that the $2 million roughly that would be raised would be all spent with one contract with one firm?
No. Not necessarily.
Okay, so how, I guess within that $2 million, I'm not a big fan of continuing to study things that we know are going to cost a lot of money that we have no money for, by the way. But how much of that $2 million is going to pay for a study to tell us we don't have enough money to fix the problems we got?
Well, I think the study itself, it might be $500,000 just to get it going. And then what we're going to end up with is some money to start implementing some things. And then once we get through that, I think we would then have on an ongoing basis, this $2 million would be available to fund some of this stuff or do whatever else we need to do. But we're going to need a lot more money than this. I mean, that's in the fund, and I don't disagree with what you're saying.
And that's, I think, my biggest challenge is that we, we just went through the exercise with Church Creek, and they provided us with a great study, but it basically told us how to fix a problem, but it didn't tell us where to get the money from.
Right.
And we do that a lot. We put together studies and we study things and we come up with these ideas, but yet if we don't have funding mechanisms for them, we're not really actually making an impact where it needs to be made. I'm not a big fan of raising taxes or fees, and in particular, but flooding is a problem, and at some point we're going to have to raise taxes and fees to do it. So I get that. We're going to have to do it. But my challenge is that to raise it without being able to see some specific impact immediately made on something, because $2 million is a lot of money, and we got a lot of problems, much more than $2 million worth. But I'm concerned that we're going to end up spending a majority of these funds, and it's really not going to have a direct impact on the things that I feel like that we could make an impact. So, I'm torn with the whole concept of raising the fee without having certain priority and having a list of items that we could make an impact with. So what I would ask is, would you consider carving out some of that money to be project-specific money, more so than just being study-driven funds, i.e., if we said, okay, we're going to spend $500,000 of this $2 million on a study, but the other $1.5 million must and will be used directly for projects for making direct and immediate improvements, whatever small they may be, but they'll make big impacts for a neighborhood somewhere. Would you consider that as an amendment?
I would certainly consider it. I'd have to defer to Laura. There she's standing ready. I don't know. The number I got was probably it could be as much as $500,000 to get the master plan updated and everything. Do you have better information than that?
So the proposal is to actually hire a project manager, and I think Councilmember Moody did a good job of explaining it, but it's a little bit more involved. So really this would supplement the staff we've got now, because my sense is that we are going to raise fees, and the public is going to want to know which projects we're going to be working on, exactly what you're after. And as Councilmember Moody knows, we've got, and everybody knows, we've got multiple interests out there trying to help us. So some of that money will go directly to projects, but the project manager will be really important helping us find our way through the weeds into which projects we're able to fund. I think they'll also be instrumental in helping us figure out what's the right mix of stormwater fees, taxes, grant opportunities, maybe flood mitigation assistance or pre-disaster mitigation money, and maybe helping us try to get some more money working with the Corps of Engineers or some other opportunities that we think might be out there. But
oh, sorry.
I think, and the capital money also, I think it's important. It's not just going to be $2 million. There's going to be a mix in here of bonds that we issue too. A couple of years ago, we went out for a bond issue, and we raised $46 million to help us fund several projects. We can do that again with this additional money, so we don't have to just wait till we do $1.5 million projects over and over again. But I think all of us and the citizens are going to want to see an updated plan going forward on, some real goals. Which projects can we fund? Where can we make progress? And and what, how can they hold us accountable for this?
So what if, can you give me a specific dollar figure that you have in your mind carved out for a study and for this staff person as a project manager, and so that we know how much is actually going to be funds available to actually do projects, whether it be a direct project or go out and using that for debt service on a bond?
Well, so I'm anticipating this project manager would not be a direct staff person because we just are kind of, the way we're structured here at the city, it's going to be difficult to hire somebody like that in this climate, but it would be a consultant who would be able to bring multiple expertise to the project. They'd be able to bring economists to the project, and certainly engineers, and certainly surveyors, and certainly project managers if we need that. So that would leave, of this $2 million, another $1.5 million. But I would submit that there's going to be more creativity in how to use that $1.5 million to the best advantage of getting the most projects done the quickest.
So if I understand you correctly, $500,000 would be used for, again, the study, the group that we would leverage to help, or the individual, the consultant, whatever you want to call it, to help us understand the prioritization, grant writing. $1.5 million directly for impact, making impacts, whether it be direct project expense or bonding it and using that for debt service. But that's what we're talking about.
And that would be annually, yes.
And we would, with $500,000 would be annual that we would expend?
No.
Well, it depends on how far it depends on how far we engage these people, because we're going to have project managers, construction inspectors. We're going to have people to help us acquire real estate when we have to get easements and things. And we've been doing a lot of that. So we've been using in-house staff to do a lot of that on Market Street and to do it on the Forest Acres project, but it is just it's really time consuming, and my sense is that you guys want us to move faster and have some more resources so we can be able to do that more efficiently.
So, thank you, Ms. Kavanaugh. So what I would say, Mr. Chairman, is that if you're willing to amend the motion to dictate that, in fact, of that $2 million that will be created roughly by this increase, up to and no more than $500,000 would be expended towards what I would call study funds, and the remaining portion could be used for direct project improvements, I'd be willing, for the first time ever.
Could we change that motion to maybe just say that it would have to come back to us if we needed another $50,000 or $100,000? It would have to come back to us to be approved.
Can I just add something? Any surplus in the stormwater fund goes immediately to the drainage fund. Okay, so.
Okay. Mr. Seeking.
I think what I hear Councilmember White asking is for a cap on the amount of monies that is spent on consulting of $500,000 going forward. I think that we need to do a lot of things to jumpstart the needs that we've got in terms of stormwater and flooding. Maybe the first year we spend $400,000 on someone who's not quote-unquote a consultant, but is a project manager who can bring help to larger projects. Sometimes it'll be less. We have to be somewhat nimble with this, and we're going to have other funds coming in. So I have no problem with putting a cap on consulting fees, but because we want this money spent on actual drainage relief. I agree with that, and I agree with Councilmember White. I mean, raising fees is not something to be taken lightly because it's going to be a burden on some people. But we need to be nimble going forward. And this will be a recurring fee, right? I mean, this is something now, once we put it in place, this is annual. So again, just another tool in our arsenal to go out into the markets when we talk about these large-scale projects and say, here's what we got, what do you got? And that's really what we're going to have to be doing going forward. So.
All right, so there was a motion. You made the motion. Would you amend it to accept this?
One question, Ms. Cavanaugh. The study for the Church Creek Basin costs how much?
The engineer's estimate was about $44 million.
No, the study.
The study.
600.
It was like $400,000, I think.
Okay.
It was just under 400, or right at 400,000.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly I'll accept that amendment. Councilmember White's amendment.
So I didn't hear what you said.
I said I would accept that amendment.
All right, so you're amending it, and Mr. Mitchell?
Oh, no.
Who made the second?
Lewis.
Mr. Lewis. He accepted the amendment. So is there any further discussion?
But let's just go over the amendment.
Okay, the amendment is that we spend no more than $500,000 on this.
No more.
No more than, yeah, on this study. Is that, okay. All right, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor of the 2018 stormwater utility budget as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, number 10 is approved. All right, now maybe we can start moving here a little bit. All right, number 11 is the Parks Capital Project. Approval of a construction contract with, got a motion. Is there a second? And a second. Any discussion on that James Allen Rec? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Got one?
Yes,
Okay.
Councilmember Lewis.
All right. Item number 12 is the approval of change order number 1 with Salmon's Dredging Corporation, the amount of $30,000, repairs the floating docks at the Maritime Center. We're hoping to get that back from FEMA.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved. Now,
Can I just ask one
Yes, sir.
question on that item, not specific to that, but the Maritime Center? And I don't know if somebody in Capital Projects can answer this, but there is the depths of the water along the water's edge there has gotten to such where you can't really use some of the finger piers for parking boats. Do we have, I mean, I don't think any of this has anything to do with dredging that site, but have we actually done gotten a bid to dredge that area?
No, we haven't. As far as I know, that there's some contamination issues and lots of permitting scenarios that would have to be overcome to get something like that done.
I would ask that we at least go through the exercise of finding out the cost to dredge that area. That one pier, which is the first one that you get to, is actually at low tide, you can't even park the boat there. So it's actually not even being able to be used anymore.
right.
And when we first built the Maritime Center, that wasn't the case. But we have failed to continue to dredge that area. And so that's all new sediment from when we actually built that facility. So I would just ask, can we take a look at that and see what the cost would be? And if there is some environmental issues, what those are and what the hurdles that we'd have to cross to do that, just so at least we have the information.
We can look into it.
Thank you, Jason.
All right. Item,
Mr. Cronsberg,
Mr. Waring?
I have a question, Mr. Cronsberg. Well, don't leave. I know this had nothing to do with the motion, but the piece of equipment over at W.L. Stevens Playground,
At Forest Park,
is that in here?
it's already been approved.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
All right, item number 13, let's see. Got a motion, a second on item number 13.
Second.
Who seconded that?
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Shade.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 13 is approved. 14 is approval of B&C Land to install check valve
For approval.
on the storm drain. Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Item 15 is the public service.
Second.
Got a motion, a second on that Harbortown Road. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 15 is approved. Item number 16 is a Committee on Real Estate. Chairman White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Committee on Real Estate met today at 3 o'clock. We heard three updates on the low-line issues with the lease and the billboards, the title commitment issues, and the tract of housing. We also had a discussion around the execution of First Amendment from Member Understanding on the low line. We had a request for approval for the exclusive stormwater drainage easement with the city and Ashley Hall Manor Drainage Improvement Project, and two annexations, one at 1419 Adele Street, the other at Folly and Grimble. All those items were approved unanimously, and I will move for the adoption report.
I'll second that, but
Got a motion, a second. Any discussion?
one
Mr.
part of
Waring.
the discussion I think our chairperson wanted me to add. It was a pretty good discussion about some sort of upgrade so the people at the market will be able to get heat in the wintertime. Right now, there's no mechanisms for them to do that. They can't plug in a space heater Fire department has outlawed, I think, the propane heaters that they once had. So when the temperature drops outside, there's no mechanism for them to heat. So we're supposed to be looking at how people are going to look at what does it take to bring in electrical power, et cetera, to be able to accomplish that.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Warren. Any other comments or questions about the real estate report? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 16 is approved. Ways and Means is adjourned. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.